move up next to each other, and then also make sure that you're sitting next to someone because we're going to be getting to know each other today. So first off, turn to your neighbor, give them a high five. You made it, you made it. You've made it so far. Oh wow, these lights are bright. I can barely see you. Okay, I want to get a vibe. I want to get a vibe from the world. So how many people are pro 4-day work week? Just raise your hand if you're pro 4-day work week. Okay, a little some cheering. How many are like anti or just like meh? Okay, okay. And then how many just walked in here, like don't even know or looking for food, don't even understand, just come on in, we're hanging out. So I'm a play guy, right? And because I'm a play guy, I love to play first and foremost. So what I want us to do is we're going to do a little imaginative play before we start. What I want you to do is I just want you to picture, what would you do? What would you do if you had the time off to just hang out, where you just had an extra day? What would you do? I just want you to imagine. Would you hang out more with your family? Would you hang out less with your family? Right? Would you go to Guatemala? Like, what would you do with this extra day that you have? I just want you to picture that for a moment, right? And then if you're watching this online, I want you to go ahead and type that into the chat. And then what I want you to do is I want you to turn to a neighbor and I want you to share. What would you do with this extra day, this bonus day that you have? So go ahead, I'll give you about a minute to share with each other. What would you do? What would you do with that extra day? Go ahead there, Frank. Turn behind them. You can talk to those two people behind you, Frank. What would you do? What would you do? Online, what would you do? Would you create a hobby? What would you do? Would you start a side hustle? What would you do? We want to find out. Look how excited everyone is. Oh my gosh. Share. What would you do? What would you do? Wait, what? Exactly. All right, I'll give you about 15 more seconds. Share, share. Okay, give each other a high five. Give each other a high five or an air five. Thank you, thank you. Okay, that right there. Do you feel that feeling? That feeling of like expansiveness, that feeling of possibility, that feeling that, oh my gosh, like this would be so cool to have. That's the argument right there. If you got nothing else from this, just that feeling. Imagine if someone was gonna come to your job and they get to do that. They're already feeling that. Because there's really right now, like we all know we should have done this 15 years ago. Let's just be honest, right? But you're going to have a lot of pushback. And what we're going to explore today is what type of pushback you're going to hear, how we were currently stuck in a certain situation, and how do we actually get out of it so that we can actually do really good work. That's my job. My job is to persuade you and then give you arguments. So let me talk about what we're covering today. So we're covering first off, where does the 40-hour work week come from? Like, why do we have it? What's the point? Why is it obsolete? It is obsolete. It's been obsolete for at least 50 years. What are the benefits of the 4-day work week? What proof do we have that it actually works? Because there's a ton of proof. And then finally, I don't want to be here if we're not going to take action. So what action steps can you take at any time? And then I have my QR code down here. Those for all the studies that I'm going to be referencing today. So you can scan that. That's on every single slide. Okay, so let's start first off with what's going on. What's happening? So I travel around the country. I go to Canada. I've gone to like Australia, all these places. And the vibe from employees that work sucks. Like work sucks. But it doesn't just suck like, it always sucks, right? No, work sucks more since we came out of the pandemic. I was expecting more empathy and humanity and none of that, right? It's just like, it's empty. And when I ask employees, well, why does work suck so much? Many of them feel used, many of them feel disrespected, many of them feel exploited. And let me know if you felt this, where your boss or your organization's strategic plan, when you're like, well, what's our strategic plan for next year? And they're like, more. We want more, right? More revenue, more clients, more rent, more of this, more, always more, always more, always more, right? How many of you are currently doing more than one job? Like, just raise your hand. Okay, look around, just look around, okay? How many of you have been asked in the past to do more than one job, right? Right? And if you quit, how many people do they hire? 2, 3 people, right? So this whole idea that many times when they're asking us to do more, then they slip that sweet stuff in there, and they're like, and actually, you know how we're gonna do more? And you're like, oh, with more staff? And they're like, no, we're gonna do more with less. All right, more with less. We're gonna give you less, but like we expect you to be creative and create more, right? And here's something I want to communicate to all of you. Remember nothing else from this. I want you to remember this. You're doing enough. You're productive enough. So, yeah, go ahead, give me a clap for yourself. You're productive enough. So I want you to turn to your neighbor and turn to each other like, you're productive enough. Go ahead, tell them you're productive enough. You're productive enough. Why would I say that? What data do I have? Well, I'm just talking, like, what am I talking about, right? Let's talk about it. Productivity gap, Economic Policy Institute, from 1979 to 2022, we have been 64.7% more productive. How much have we gotten paid for that? 14.8%. We are doing everything they've asked for us and more. I have a friend that works for an organization that we all use their stuff. I'm not going to say who, but you may know them. And they hit their quarter numbers every quarter. And in the fourth quarter, they laid off a bunch of them. They laid off 1,000 of them after they hit their numbers. So like, this is how employees are feeling. They feel the game is rigged, right? And they also feel as if when you're like, well, and then companies are like, well, we can't give you a raise or we can't help you out because we don't have the money. What are you talking about? All these companies are making more money than ever before. So much more money. The most they've made, $2.9 trillion in profits in 2023, 38% of that in the US. What are they doing with that money? Are you seeing that money? Is that in your bank account? Like, where are you seeing that, right? Where is it going? It's going a lot of times, especially Fortune 500 companies, it's going to stock buybacks. What is that? That means when a company makes a lot of money, instead of giving it to their employees, they buy back stock. What happens? The stock price rises, C-suite executives make a buck, investors make a buck. What happens to us? We still are doing all the work, right? And then in some cases, and this is really messed up, they buy back stock and then they lay off staff. So it's like communicating right then and there, profits over people. I care more about short-term gains than I care about people. And that is the vibe. That is why a lot of employees feel angry, like feel frustrated. So how do we actually address this, right? It sucks right now, but it really doesn't have to suck. And one thing that can be done immediately without even you having to tell people like we care about our employees, or they put that poster on the wall that says leadership and there's an eagle there, all those posters, right? Worst companies ever. If the more of those posters, the more you want to stay away from those places, right? But how do we do it? Simply by choosing to tell people we're going to do less. So if you went up to someone and were like, yeah, we're running a 4-day work week. Okay, well, what do you mean by that? Oh, we're gonna have you do work less. Well, what's the catch? Oh, no catch. I get reduction in pay, right? No, same amount. Well, there must be something else. No, we're going to have you work less and you are going to get more. We believe that you're going to be more productive, you're going to be happier, you're going to have less stress, you're going to have more time for yourself, you have more time to come up with ideas, and the data's there. So when we do something as revolutionary as a 4-day work week, what we're really communicating is that we care about people. Just that one action alone. That's enough for so many people to come to your company out of anyone else's. Just that. But let me persuade you. So let's first talk about history. We're going to talk about history before we get into me making the case. So how did we come up with a 40-hour work week? There is a man named Robert Owen, a labor activist that came out of it in 1817. 8 hours of work, 8 hours of rest, 8 hours to do whatever you want. Sounds great, right? Didn't happen. At the beginning, it was so much pushback. These are just some of the timeline. There was many more on here, but some of the timeline. 1817, he came up with it. 1835, workers in Philadelphia organized the first general strike, just asking for 8 hours. They're just, or no, not even that. They were asking for 6 to 6, 10-hour work days with some just meals. We were hanging at a cheesecake factory yesterday, and there was like, how long's your lunch break? They're like, 30 minutes. That's not even a real lunch break, right? Like, what are we doing? So then 1868, U.S. Congress passed the first 8-hour workday law for federal employees. Still, a lot of pushback. 1886, 350,000 people had to go on strike in order to demand Congress to pay attention. 1898, that's when first progress was actually made in the for-profit sector when the United Mine Workers won an 8-hour workday. Who drove it? Surprise, a lot of people don't know this. A lot of women. A lot of women in the workforce actually drove a significant portion of it. Woolworth workers, huge strikes, massive strikes. And then what was even more interesting, this is sanitation workers in New York. Look at one of the signs. One of the signs says, "Don't shorten our lives. We need 5-day, 40-hour work weeks now." They basically were just like, we don't want to die at work. Is that too much to ask? I just don't want to die, maybe later, but not at work, right? Like, that's how much, they weren't even asking for that much. But the reason why I show all this is like, this is how long, it's going to take a while. You're going to get rejected a lot because the powers that be want us to work as much as possible and want us to pay us as little as possible. That's the game. That's the game. But if you can persuade somebody that we can actually do better work in a shorter period of time, all of a sudden they're like, well, maybe I'll consider that. So I just want to give you that context, okay? Now, what was interesting, talk about this, happens all the time. Henry Ford implements this in 1925, and then he claims it was his idea. How many of you have had that, where someone takes your idea and then steals it and says it's their own? Look at that, right? So, yeah, he caved to this. Many CEOs caved to this, and it's the same way it's going to go this time. It's not going to be CEOs driving it. Elon Musk is not advocating for a 4-day work week. He wants us to work 8 days a week if it was possible. It's not going to come from leadership. It's going to come from us. That's just the reality. That's where we're going to be at. All right, let's talk about why it's obsolete. Why a 40-hour work week does not work anymore. Frankly, it probably never worked, but it does not work anymore. You can only focus for 4 hours a day. A new poll finds tech workers do just 4 hours of focused work a day. Bosses shouldn't be surprised or worried. This has been the data for the last 20 years. You can only focus for 4 hours. The rest of the time, you're kind of just like twiddling your thumbs. You're sitting at a meeting, you're looking at Amazon, you're thinking about, well, what are you going to do after work? You're just not that focused. And it's okay. It's just what was it? I think I read about this a while back, that we work more than peasants did in the UK, where they actually take whole summers off. So we're working more than people back in like the 1800s. And we're just sitting around most of the time, right? So you can only do 4 hours of actual good work. Now, what usually happens with the other 4 hours, right? Or the other 36 hours? So there's something known as Parkinson's Law. Some of you might know this. It is like work will expand to fill the allotted time. So have you ever been at a meeting where it's 60 minutes, but it really should be 22 minutes? Have you felt that, where you're just like, this meeting doesn't have to go that long, and then someone raises their hand or I'd like to share what I did this weekend. You're like, no, can we just end this meeting already, right? People will fill the time. I'll give you a great example with procrastinators in the room. Raise your hand if you're a procrastinator. Okay, if I give you 8 hours to pack, how long it's going to take you, right? You can't decide. You're like, maybe this, maybe that. You have 10 minutes to pack. I know exactly where. I know what's going to happen, right? It's a lot of time. It's a lot of time. So if you create the situation, people will actually get better work done if you create those boundaries. You give them all the time in the world, we'll fill it, right? So how do we make it so that we're actually efficient and then we have more time for ourselves? We want to explore that. So last thing around like history. So John Maynard Keynes, he was an economist back in the 30s. He actually believed by 1950, 1960, we would only work 25 to 30 hours a week, maybe even less. What he did not realize is that because of capitalism, a lot of people were pushed to being like, hey, you got to move to the suburbs. Hey, you got to buy the brand new refrigerator. Hey, you got to buy the brand new car. You got to buy more and more stuff, so you got to work more and more. But we really didn't need to be working 40 hours. We could have gotten the same amount of work done in 25 to 30 hours. He actually believes by 2030, we're working only 15 hours a week. Especially with AI, yeah, that could be possible. I'm not even advocating for that. I'm advocating for 30, 32, okay? We can find 32 hours. So then, all right, we've talked about history, let's talk about benefits. What are the benefits, okay? 4-day work week right now. 61% of people want work-life balance. 52% of them are willing to change their jobs right now for it. 78% of them have been wanting a 4-day work week for quite some time. And then here's the thing about Gen Z. 58% will actively seek new employment. They will walk out because Gen Z doesn't give up. You know what I'm saying? Like they just don't, they'll just leave. They'll just leave. They'll be like, oh, the Great Resignation. Who drove the Great Resignation? Gen Z. They were like, I'm out. I'm just walking out. And then millennials and Gen X were like, you can just do that. You can just walk out, which I'm going to go with you. I'm going to go with you. I see you, Mike. Mike's the cameraman. Give it up for Mike. He's keeping up with me the whole time. All right, Mike. So are you ready for Gen Z? 30% of the workforce by 2030. You ready? Gen Alpha's 10% of the workforce by 2030. 40%. You ready for that? The my way or the highway approach is not going to slide. It's just not. I mean, it's done now. I'm working with a lot of those organizations. They're like, we just don't understand it. We just tell them what to do. They should do what we do. No, dude. They'll leave your job and make TikTok videos. I know people on TikTok paying their rent right now, paying their debts off on TikTok. They will be creative just to not work for you. So, I don't know. I debate some, thought leaders sometimes in SHRM, and they're like, a lot of people regretted coming back to the workplace. Not Gen Z. They're figuring it out. They will be creative enough to find another way of doing it because they don't want to work the way we work. They saw what Gen X and millennials did and they were like, you look miserable. I'm not going to do what you did, okay? So this is why, right? This is what we're doing. So let's talk actual benefits. Let's get into that, right? Reduced cost of electricity and paper, 51%. 62% of people log fewer sick days. How much absenteeism are you currently dealing with, right? 63% actually can reduce more diverse talent. 64% see a higher level of productivity, and as Betterment Works communicated in their neurodiversity workshop, when 78% of people are happier, we do better work. That simple. It's that simple. So, someone will be like, oh, well, does it really pay off? Can we actually be more productive? Is it going to be a reduction in, okay, right now, nearly 1/3 of US workers put in 45 hours or more, okay? We're talking about 2,000 to 2,500 hours a year. But when companies implemented a 4-day work week, productivity did not drop. It just didn't drop. And then here, go into the top right-hand corner. Let's talk about sleep deprived. Before a 4-day work week was instituted in parts of the UK, Australia, and the US, 43% of people are sleep deprived. How many of you are sleep deprived when you go to right? How many of you will not admit it? Okay, there you go, right? After they instituted it, it went from 43 to 14. How many of you want a sleep deprived surgeon working on you, right? How many of you want your truck drivers to be sleep deprived? What are we doing? Like, why, by asking everyone all the time to do more and more and more, no wonder we have burnout. No wonder burnout is so high. And then people reach out to me and they're like, hey, we want you to come to our company and speak about burnout. And I'm like, no, why don't you just give them the day off? That's what they want. They want time. They don't want to hear about, like, the benefits of burnout. Like, just let them be free, right? So, like, what's happening? And then let's talk about productivity, right? Productivity-wise, 15% improved significantly. 34% improved slightly. Most of it is going to be the same. Most of it is going to be the same. Some of it, 5%, less productive. And we'll talk about that later on. How do we actually address that? But it's working. It's been happening for the last 20 years. Just people have not been reporting on it. It's only becoming trendy now. So you're here early. Perfect. Okay, so is there demand for a 4-day work week? Right now, 67% of people want it. If it was 10 hours, if it was 10 hours a day, they still want it. That's how badly they want it. I'll work 10 hours just so I can have Friday off. Oh my gosh, just give me some freedom, all right? The other thing, 81% of workers say a 4-day work week would make them more productive, especially in certain fields, right? It's knowledge working fields where you need ideas. You know, I met some dope people from Pepperdine the other day. They have time. They need time to brainstorm all these ideas. They need to take time off to hang out. They probably will have more epiphanies going to Guatemala and climbing a mountain and being like, hey, now I have a good idea, rather than sitting in a room. You know, the thing that frustrates me the most is when you go and you're like, all right, listen, everyone. Okay, we're going to brainstorm. So let's get in a box building, in a box room, around a box table, and then, hey, guess what? We're going to think outside the box. Yeah, all right. Isn't that a great idea? Look at how amazing that is, right? What are we doing? What are we doing? Go have ice cream while you brainstorm. But it's not rational. Like, what we're doing right now does not work, and we all know it. That's why we're here. So then, all right, we're going to get to how we're going to do it in a moment, all right? But last things, a lot of people thought pay was most important. It's not anymore. Ever since the pandemic, when people had time, the people that were privileged enough to have time, right, they hung out more. They got to spend time with their family. They picked up hobbies. How many of you did puzzles? Puzzles became a big thing, right? Ted Lasso, I watch it all the time, right? You binge watch everything you've always wanted to watch. Like, when you have the time, they realize time is more valuable. That's probably one of the biggest commodities, even more than pay. So, we've talked about that, but then let's argue against it. Let's argue against it. What are the arguments against? Challenge me. I want to hear the arguments. So I was like, okay, what are the arguments against? Let's talk about, first off, we can't afford it. We just don't have the money, man. We don't have the money. We don't have the time. You know, we can't afford it. Can you afford 85% of your employees being disengaged? How's that working out? Gallup, there's a Gallup poll from 2019, so it's worse. It's worse than that. How's your absenteeism right now? How's your recruitment and your retention? Can you afford this? Can you afford hemorrhaging money? Low employment engagement costs companies $450 to $500 billion each year, according to Business Leadership. Is this affordable? Like, what you're doing right now, does this work? Because, I don't know, man. I mean, what about this part? Back to this. When we actually do 4 hours of focused work, when you have extra time, you actually can explore more and have epiphanies and actually get into flow that actually figures out more creative and innovative solutions. Right now, you're working so much, you're so burnt out, you're coming up with the same crappy solutions all the time. Can you afford that? Can you really afford that? The other thing is when people are like, well, we can't afford it. It's just like, I just saw you make money. I saw you make a ton of money over the last 4 years. Where's that money? Are you going to use any of that money for us? Where is that? And then the other part that people argue is just like, well, not enough time. You can't like take a day away. Explain to me why Chick-fil-A is so successful. It's off on Sundays. How is it making more money than Taco Bell, Wendy's, Dunkin', and Burger King? Why? Because it's good. Because you're like, I need that chicken. I need that chicken. I don't know what they do to it, but I love it, right? So even though they are working a day less, they figured it out. So we are human beings. We can figure this out. We figured out how to get to Mars. We can find 8 hours. We can discover it somehow. So how are we actually going to do that? So the other thing about can you afford this? It's coming. It's coming whether you like it or not. Whether you like it, when you're talking to your staff or you're talking to your CEO and he's like, oh, we'll do it in about 10 years. No, it's coming now. And I love this quote from Stephen Johnson, you'll find the future where people are having the most fun. If you think about your industry, who in your industry is having the most fun? Who's taking the biggest risks? During the pandemic, it was TikTok, it was Hulu, it was Netflix. Whoever's having the most fun, people gravitate towards. You see that when you're at a restaurant and you're like with your coworkers, you know, the company, and you're at the table where no one's talking. You're like, oh, this is so awkward. And then people are laughing at the other table and you're like, oh, I want to be at that table. Why do I have to be in this awkward place? People want to be at the fun. They want to come to the fun. And when someone is doing something like a 4-day work week, they're like, I want to be there. I don't want to be here. I want to hang out here. So whatever you're doing to create, to take risks, to be innovative, those are the places you want to be at. The places that are the early adopters, the innovators. Right now, where are we at when we're talking about 4-day work week? We're in the chasm of innovators, early adopters, the smaller chasm. But soon, probably in the next 2 to 3 years, maybe even shorter, the big scary chasm is going to come, where there's going to be a lot of people that are like, should I do it or should I wait? And if you wait, you become the late majority. And if you wait even longer, you become the laggers. And if you wait too long, you become the last blockbuster. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what we're talking about? How are we being more relevant, right? Are you going to be relevant? How many of you still go to Sears? Exactly. Like, what is actually happening? So where do you want to be on this? Where do you want to be on this? Because if you're early, if you're in the early adopters or the early majority, recruitment's going to be so easy, right? Retention's going to be so easy. The people that figured out virtual way beforehand, back in 2015, 2016, were some of the most profitable places in 2020, okay? So where do you want to be on this? Challenge your CEOs, challenge your C-suite executives. Where do we want to be on this? Do we want to take the risk or not? And again, you can also do it in a very experimental way. Not the whole company has to change, but you can start to experiment. We're going to explore that in a moment. But now, let's talk about the other argument that is said so much. And this part is where I want you to connect with one another. Is it's impossible to get all the work done, get all of our work done. I have so much work. There's no way I can do it in 4 days. I already have like 60 hours worth of work. Okay, all right. Let's challenge that notion. I want you to either write this down or jot this down or just note it in your head. What are your most time-consuming tasks right now? I want you to just note that. What are your most time-consuming tasks? What are the ones that suck the soul out of you? What are those? What are those? What are the ones that you're like, I don't even know why we do this, right? Where you have like a meeting that's way too long, or you have a report that you have to do because someone doesn't trust someone else, and now you're making a report after report after report. What are the most time-consuming, time-sucking, soul-sucking tasks? I want you to identify those, all right? Give me a thumbs up when you got yours. Give me a thumbs up when you got yours, okay? Okay? All right, so this is what we're going to do. And the same thing, we can do this online. I want you, and we're going to do this quickly, but I want you to break up into groups of 3. And what I want you to do is I want you to share your most time-consuming tasks, and then the other 2 people are going to give you ideas on how to get rid of those tasks. And we're going to do this fast. But listen, there's groups of 3, and we're going to have the person with the longest hair go first. Okay, the person with the longest hair? For no reason. We're just saying. The longest hair. All right, and then the same thing for the people that are online. I want you to write down, so go ahead, write, people online, I want you to write down what are your most time-consuming tasks, and then I want you to start addressing each other's in the comments. You're breaking them into groups of 3. I will give you 2 minutes starting now. Find a group of 3. There's a group of 3 right there. Group of 3, just turn around. Group of 3, Frank, look at it right there, Frank. Michael, I see you. I see you, Michael. I see you. I see you, Michael. All right, so people online, I want you to write your most time-consuming tasks, and then I want solutions. I want people to give solutions in there. As many solutions as possible. The solution might be perfect for them. I see you. I'm in it with you. We're in it together. Write your most time-consuming tasks and solutions to those tasks. I've given you about 90 seconds. 90 seconds. This clock. Oh my gosh, clock. The clock. Where are we on time? Okay. Keep me running. All right, you got 45 seconds. 45 seconds. Get them the solutions. Make sure to switch. Get everybody's ideas. Help each other out. Same thing in the chat. Get as many ideas as possible. What could you do to get rid of those time-consuming tasks? "20 seconds. Let's go, chat. Do as many as possible. Do as many as possible. Down to 10. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, thank each other. Thank each other. High five each other. High five each other. Give an air five. Okay. We've already come up with solutions. We would do that in what, 2 minutes? That's 2 minutes. Clearly, we can find 8 hours. Clearly. Give me some of the time. Give me some of the time, the soul-sucking tasks. Give me some. Meetings. Oh my God, how many people hate meetings? And we just how many people want to cancel half the meetings? My good, or all the meetings. I mean, my goodness. They're all emails. Let's just be honest about it, right? They're all emails. How many meetings do you have where it's just one person that's just lonely, that hasn't talked to anyone all day, and they're like, we're going to have this meeting, and you're like, no. Okay? All right. So meetings. What's up? What else? What else? Emails. Oh my gosh. How many people that hate it when someone is like, okay, here, I just sent you the document. I got it. Thanks. You're welcome. Oh my God. Oh, exhausting. There's some organizations I know where they got rid of email. Or they were like, you have to limit it. You have to limit the amount, right? Same thing with Slack. What's another one? Training where you treat employees like children. How many? How many? Snaps? Snaps? Right? You know, if you burn out, maybe you should sleep more. Oh, thanks. That was really helpful. Right. How many of those trainings? Sometimes I apologize. They ask me sometimes to run those trainings. And I'm like, we don't need those trainings. We need time. So it frustrates me so much because the solutions are obvious. They're out there, but we have to be the ones that argue this. I will say this, and I just say this always for HR because I love HR more than anything. Can we give it up for each other? We turn to each other. You're amazing. You're amazing, and I'm not just saying it. But HR, human resources, is the only department that has human in the title. There's a reason for that, right? Because we prioritize humans. Now, here's the problem. We are not good advocates for ourselves. You know who are good advocates for themselves? Marketing. They spend more time marketing to us than they send outside, right? They are telling you all the time all the great things they're doing. You're like, I'm looking at your expense report, and you're trying to get Six Flags approved, okay? Like, what are you doing? We know how much sales waste money. Like, come on. So we have to do a better job. Like, this is off the cuff, but we have to do a better job of advocating why we are so good. We're the ones that kept these organizations together during the pandemic. Do you remember that? I had HR people that were calling up epidemiologists at universities and be like, I don't know what to do. And we're like, we don't either. And then you figured it out. Did you get credit for that? Did you get recognized for that? Why are we getting paid the least while marketing or sales or a CFO is getting more and they're doing less work? Like, what's happening? Right now, and this is, I'm just going off the cuff, let's go. Okay, so right now, Boeing, you know how that door fell off on Boeing, right? And also they crashed a few planes. That guy that's walking away, he's walking away with $30 million, the CEO. I ran the numbers on what's the average salary of Boeing. It's $93,000 a year. That would be 322 people's salaries that they could just give to him. But instead, this guy's walking away after running Boeing into the ground. Why? So what is happening? So we just figured out in 2 minutes how to find 8 to 10 hours. So it is there. We probably could, if we spent even more time, I challenge you to actually do this with your staff. What is soul sucking? Why are we doing it? Because there are things like reports. How many of you do reports where you have to report to somebody else what work you're doing, and you're like, I do more work telling you the work I'm doing than actually doing the work, right? Why? Why? Because that person doesn't trust me. Why not? Because they're a horrible manager. They really should not be in that position. Hello, let's talk about that, right? So this is where we have to figure this out. So now, let me first go through proof. Proof that you can give to somebody else. So let's talk about proof tangibly and what has happened. Let's first start abroad. So let's first go to Iceland. So in Iceland, they did it from 2015 to 2019, 2,500 workers, right? 35 to 36 hours. What were the benefits? Productivity rised. It improved across all trial workplaces. Well-being improved, and also it increased significantly in these certain indicators: stress, burnout, work-life balance, health. People were actually getting healed by a 4-day work week. After an overall success of the trial, 86% of countries' workforce still doing less hours. That's Iceland. Someone's like, oh, it's Iceland. Iceland's weird. They do stuff like that all the time. That's not us. All right, let's go to Spain. 4-day work week was implemented not too long ago. In one city, in the city of Valencia, which is a population of 800,000 people, they not only implemented this, but they made 4 holidays, 4 government holidays, so people were off for those government holidays on like a Monday. That impacted 350,000 people. And what they found, in addition to increased productivity and benefits and all this stuff, what it helped a lot with was children. The families actually got to spend more time together, and you saw better behavior from children, better engagement and connection with the family. And mind you, this is Spain, where they already do a siesta for like 2 hours. So you would think they couldn't do better. But yeah, so it actually healed that city. Less people were going to the hospital because they had more time off, right? So you're reducing all of these additional costs that benefit the whole community. All right, well, that's Spain. Okay, let's go to the UK. UK, world's largest 4-day work week schedule. 61 UK companies did this. Look at the numbers for just 6 months. Employee retention, so high. Time satisfaction, revenue was higher. Positive emotions. Look what's at the bottom. Absenteeism dramatically drops. Fatigue dramatically drops. Burnout dramatically drops. How many out of those 61 are still doing it? 56. 56 companies are still doing it. So it's working. Okay, that's okay. Well, you got any more? Yeah, I got more. All right, Australia. Perpetual Guardian. It was an organization that did this in 2017. I won't even go through the numbers, but just look, team engagement levels increase. Leadership, commitment, stimulation, empowerment, all of these are higher. This company did such a good job doing the 4-day work week that they actually wrote a book called The 4-Day Work Week, where they just laid out everything that they did that's successful. They actually have an organization now called, I think, the 4-Day Week, that they just show other companies how to do it. All right, it's all abroad. All those places are weird. The US is different. What's going on in the US? All right, let's talk about the US. Maryland, right now, is considering a pilot program to incentivize employees to move to a 32-hour work week. Who else is looking at it from a federal level? California, let's go, right? Massachusetts, Missouri, Pennsylvania, Texas, Vermont. I thought Vermont would have already had it. Come on, it's Vermont, right? Right? But even Representative Takano wrote, I'm introducing this legislation to reduce the standard work week to 32 hours because now more than ever, people continue to work longer hours while their pay remains stagnant. What we were talking about earlier regarding productivity and not getting paid for it, this is what he's trying to address because people are getting taken advantage of. Right now, this is happening. I was consulting with the city of Rancho Cucamonga last year. They're starting to do a 4-day work week. They're doing 10 hours, seeing how that goes. Oh, today, Lionsgate. Who was here at the beginning of the day? If you're the first she said, she was like, we work 4 days in the office, and then we work a half day on Friday. And I was like, just take away that half day. Then it's a 4 day. It's 4 days. Just make it happen. It already exists. You already have it. You're so close, right? So people are already doing it whether they're realizing psychologically that they're doing it or not, okay? So this is just what is currently happening. Lastly, and this, remember, Perpetual Guardian, so they now have an organization called 4-Day Week. You can find a database of every company that is doing a 4-day work week right now. 70 of them are in the US. So you can look right now, you can be like, well, maybe I'll look for a different job here. So like, because it's happening. Again, early adopters, where do you want to be? It's still early. So this would be the best time if you want to increase your recruitment, increase your retention, and increase your productivity, and figure this out. Mess around with this so that by the time it actually arrives, like virtual happened, you're already like, I got it. We already figured it out. So we talked about all that stuff, but let's talk about how do we implement it. Let's talk real. Okay, so there are questions we got to figure out. Here are the questions. The first that I recommend. You have to figure out, why are you considering doing it? What is the point? Do you just want people to work less? Do you think that is there a benefit for doing this? You have to determine the effectiveness. This is so key. With Perpetual Guardian, what they did is they did something called the gift of the fifth, where they said, we got to earn that 5th day off. So we're going to do this trial run of 4 days, but our productivity levels have to stay this much. If not, we go back to 5 days. That was motivation enough for them to achieve their goals. So it has to be clear. You got to have goals, right? Will you adopt the program for the whole staff? Do we roll out 10 hours 4 days? Do we roll out 8 hours for 4 days? Do we do it with all of our staff? Do we do it with new hires? Do we do it with a certain department? Those are the things that we have to figure out. Then we also have to understand that some clients and customers not going to like it. Some of them will be like, I want you to contact you on Friday and Saturday. No, we're not going to be available. All right, then I'm not going to work with you. Okay, that's fine. Other companies might be like, good for you. We want to do that more. We want to support your company because you care about your employees. You're going to have to figure out both. It's not going to be all happy. Some people are going to leave you. That's just a reality. Some people love the work. They're like, I want to work all the time. Okay, enjoy that, right? That's for you. And then the other thing is it feasible for your industry? Some industries are more service-based than knowledge-based. So if they're service-based, they need more, they sometimes say they need more hours. I was talking to someone about manufacturing, and they were like, yeah, well, we need more hours, but okay. An argument you could potentially say is, are they as productive when they're on the line, right? Are they suffering in any way? Like, what is happening? Do they burn out because they're on the line so much? Are we creating more quality, or are we making so many mistakes that we have to actually do the line all over again? And we just proved with Chick-fil-A, like, less time doesn't always mean less pay. You can actually make as much money, if not more. So those are just some of the questions. Then tangible things you can actually do as well. We talked about some of these. 5 critical tools to make a 4-day work week. Fewer meetings. Yes, thank you. Let's do this, right? Asynchronous work. You work around how people want to work. I learned that during the All Brains Neurodiversity Workshop. Everyone does it differently. How do we create the environment so people do their best work in their most vibrant way, right? We shift non-essential personal appointments to the day off. Stop taking your dentist appointment in the middle of the week because you hate work. Just do it on Friday because now I'm giving you time. I'm giving you time to do whatever you want, right? We keep talking to our team the whole time. How's this working out? Is this working out? Do you like this? You know, what's good? What's not? And then definitely major work blocking, right? We're not emailing back and forth all the time. You know that person that is very talkative? They go in that room and they put a sign up and be like, don't talk to me because I want to talk to you, but I actually have to get work done, right? Or you tape it on their back and you're like, I love talking to people, but not right now, right? Work blocking, you actually strategically help people do work their way in the best way possible. Now, how do you roll it out? Phases. So the phases that this organization, Mind the Gap Consulting, talked about is, first they assess, okay, is this right for us, right? They anticipate, okay, what is our staff going to think? What are their questions? Let's actually address that. After they figure that out, then they finally announce why we're doing it. What's the purpose? What is the effectiveness? And then even when they adopt it, it's only for 90 days. It's only for 60 days. It's a trial run. We're just trying this out. We're playing. We're experimenting. We're figuring it out. Rather than being like, this is what we're going to do, and definitely going to do it this way. Like, we're all figuring this out together, but it's better to try this now than to try to scramble as a late majority or a lagger or as blockbuster, okay? Now, that organization I told you before, Perpetual Guardian, they, I think, now have this organization. So if you're like, I still can't figure it out, you could hire somebody to actually do it for you or help roll this out. Their goal, I love their goal, creating 1 million new years of free time. Right now, they've created 2,235 years of free time for you to do whatever you want, to have freedom to do what you want. Oh my gosh, that I would come to a company that wants to give me more time. All right. This last thing we're going to do, before we do it, I want to make sure, though, that not everyone is ready. Not everyone should be doing the 4-day work week. Why? Because some of y'all companies have some bad managers. And whether or not you have 5 days or you have 4 days, it's still bad management. So this panacea that like, oh, we're going to give it 4 days, your managers suck. Some of your managers suck. And if they suck, we need to address that first and foremost. Like, why do you have that person? They've been there for 5 years. They're not very good. They don't like people. Can we remove that person? We need to do that first and foremost, cull the field and bring in people that are actually motivating. Because if, let's say you have a micromanager, they're going to be the worst during a 4-day work week. They're going to be sending you extra emails during that time. You're like, oh gosh, it's exhausting, right? Another thing, you do not have clear goals. You don't know what you're doing. You're just like, we're just going to do it and then things are going to work out. No, you have to be clear about why you're doing it. You have to clearly explain what is the purpose to your staff so they understand. And then you got to do small test runs. You got to fail. We don't fail enough. If we fail more, we actually succeed sooner, right? So we have to figure out how to do this. So these are the questions that I recommend you have. So feel free, if you're going to take a photo of something, take a photo of this. These are the questions that I would recommend you address when you're first approaching your company. Why are we doing this? Like, will it actually address the issues that we have? What are we willing to sacrifice to have 4 days? Like, am I willing to have a drop in revenue at the beginning before we bring it back up? Am I willing to lose clients? Right? Lose customers at the beginning? What are the initial steps we need to take? Who are the players that we have to persuade? Who are the decision makers? Right? And then what obstacles will we face? Because a lot of people in positions of power will not want this. They will not want this. And the main reason why is because of something called Parnelli's Iron Law of Bureaucracy. Look it up. It's so sad when you read it. So Parnelli's Iron Law of Bureaucracy is companies that love bureaucracy reward staff that support the bureaucracy even at the detriment of the organization. Even if the organization is going to run into the ground, they will support the people that support the bureaucracy because they don't want change. And then the people that want change are usually ostracized or they're let go. Like, that's what we're fighting. We're fighting that iron law of bureaucracy. People that are like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to make any new changes because I'm not that good of a manager and it's really good right now because I can just keep doing mediocre work. In a 4-day work week, it's obvious. If you're not good, you're going to get left behind, right? So that is what we're going to be challenged. So because I know we're going to get challenged like this is the last exercise that we're going to try out. And then I'll take some questions if we need to. So the last exercise is this. I gave you a lot of information. But you're going to get, when you come back and you bring this to your boss, they're going to be like, no. They're just going to say no. Because, of course, they have to say no. Like, it's scary. It's new. So we want to practice this. So what I want you to do, and you're going to do this in groups of 2, is I want you to pretend as if you are talking to your boss or your supervisor or a decision maker, and you're going to try to persuade them that this is a good idea. Now, the other person, your job is to poke holes. Your job is to make it difficult. Your job is to be like, this is BS. I don't think this is true. That's crap. And what I want you to do as the person that is pitching the idea is I want you to just stay resilient and just keep going. Because the reality is you're going to get it rejected a lot. So we might as well practice now to begin with. And it's the same thing for the people that are doing this online. You will write down what are your arguments for, and then other people are going to write arguments against based off of that. So you're going to respond to that. So I want you to find a partner, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes, 1 minute each. You make your argument, they poke holes, and then you switch. All right? Everybody find a partner starting now. Let's go. And if you can't find a partner, then you can do it in groups of 3. You can do it in groups of 3, if not 2. Make your argument. Same thing online. What is your argument for? And the other person's to poke holes through it. We got to learn. We got to learn, Mike. We got to learn. All right, you have 90 seconds. All right, Frank. Let's hear it, Frank. Give me your argument. Give me your argument for.
I'm still trying to, so much of my workforce that I work with are exempt level.
Oh,
so
interesting.
Not hourly.
Okay.
You know, so, since you're paid by the year, they would consider you work 7 days a week technically.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, interesting.
So I guess that's going to be the number one thing is what do we do with it's California? What do we do with exempt people?
Yeah, yeah.
You say, hopefully no one calls you for 3 days.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm thinking, I think that's the first, even if I propose the idea, push back with that woman, but the majority of our staff, maybe not secretaries and things are not, but majority of leadership for sure is exempt.
Yeah. Ooh, let's talk about it after. This is good. All right, 1 minute, then start switching. Switch to the other person. All right. We're good on time. We're good on time. Thirty seconds, make those arguments. Same thing in the chat. Why should we do it? Make a whole argument, and then everyone else poke holes in it. We got to make it strong. 15 seconds. All right, 10 more seconds. Make that last argument. Make that last argument. You can do it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, wrap up with each other. Thank each other. Thank each other. Give a handshake. Give a high five. Get a nod. Welcome it. This is the beginning. We're only beginning. All right. How was that? How was that for some of you, right? How was it to get the rejection and then just keep going? What was that like? How did that feel? Was that hard? Was that easy? This is what we're going to experience. If you're trying to pitch a 4-day work week, get ready because it might be 2 or 3 years before you finally get it. Are you willing to put in that much work in order to make it happen? Because no one is just going to be like, yeah, this is a great idea. We should do it tomorrow, right? You are going to get rejected a lot because this is too foreign to people. Just like how scared people are about AI, they are scared about this. They think it's going to be chaos. It's like when weed became legal in Colorado and they were like, everyone's going to not work anymore. Everyone's just going to wander around and eat Cheetos all the time. Like there's all this fear mongering of what might happen, right? But the reason why we did this right here is because we need to practice. We need to be ready because they're going to say no a lot. And that's their job. Their job is to say no a lot, right? And it's our job to challenge, because just like we talked about with history, it's going to take some time, but that's where the humanity is. So as I wrap up here, I want to wrap up this way. So more isn't always better, right? Sometimes it's just more. And what I mean by that is we don't need any more companies that are success at all cost companies. We just don't. Like, it's not sustainable. Like, we are burning people out. It's not sustainable to the environment. A great example of this is Amazon. Look this up for yourself. Don't believe me. But Amazon, they found in one warehouse in the UK, they throw away 120,000 items a week. We make all of these items. They're sent to Amazon warehouse. They are not sold. And then the shelf space is so expensive that they'll toss it and burn it just so they can put more stuff on the shelf. We are making more than we need to. We are doing so much more that is literally destroying us, destroying our environment, destroying our families, destroying our connection with each other because we're working so much, right? This is not, it's insane the way in which we're currently working. And because it's not sustainable, by you actually figuring out how to do this in the next 2 to 5 years, you are not only helping yourself, you are not only helping people that come to your organization, but you are changing the benefits of a generation after us. You're actually doing the promise that we broke to a lot of Gen Z and Gen Alpha, which is, have you made the years later on better for them? If you could just do this one thing and get 4 days in, that could dramatically change all of these other generations. You actually literally can heal the workplace and heal community by doing this. That is the level of impact. It's not something small. This is something quite large. So as we wrap up, I've mentioned that I share a bunch of these studies on here, but I want to say, for the longest time, we've been asked to do more with less. And I believe right now, we can finally make the argument that we can do less and get more. More joy, more happiness, more community, more connection, feel more seen, heard, appreciated, and valued. All of those things can happen if we're willing to take this risk. And if you take this risk in the next couple of years, not only will work suck less, but people will actually want to work for you because now they have time to actually show up more as themselves. That's my time, everyone. That's me. All right? I got 2 minutes. If we got one question, throw a question out if you got a question. Let's go. Right there.
Is it always Friday off, or can it be Monday or any other day?
I think it's open to whoever, I think it's your organization, right? It should be creative. Well, it's asynchronous, right? Some of them are like, we're going to, like Lions was like, hey, we're doing 4 days in the office. That was their thing, right? But some other asynchronous work organizations are like, you are doing your 4 days. You just have to let us know which day. And then if, let's say, you're like Wednesdays off, we need to make sure someone is covered to cover your calls during that time. So it really depends. Yes? Right. Oh, what happened? Oh, can you throw them back up there, Mike? This last slide right here with the QR code. Oh, it's also on the app. But yeah. Yeah, there you go. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's a start. I credit them for at least trying, right? I still think in those 10 hours, they're not doing 10 hours. They're doing like 6, you know? So but at least they're trying it, right? If that is the only way in which you're gonna make progress and you're like, we still gotta do 40 hours, all right, then at least that's a start. But ultimately, that's not sustainable either, right? Like, why are we increasing to 10 when we know everyone's sleep deprived? So it's a beginning to get in. It's a gateway. It's a gateway into the actual 32. Okay, any others? Any others? Yes. Pepperdine. So we were talking about that with the manufacturing, right? The argument is, let's say you have such a hard time recruiting, right? So if you do a 4-day work week, 32 hours, you're not going to have that hard time recruiting. You still can keep people on the line, so you're getting more people. It's harder for the scheduler to actually rotate them through, right? But you could still be working 7 days a week. The company's working 7 days a week, but each staffer is only working 4 days. The hourly pay should not change. I'm advocating this same amount because I actually believe, and there's arguments to this as well, the quality of the work might go up, and sometimes, and not always with manufacturing, sometimes the dip in productivity is not that much. It's negligible for what they can do. They did this with Japan, with IBM, specifically with computers, and they were actually proved that it wasn't that drop of productivity that they thought they were expecting. What? Any other? We're done. We're out of time. Thank you very much. Feel free to talk to me afterwards. Thank you.